directly with the High Court, with the court that I was in. They didn't say you can't have the appeal, but they said, you know, you're applying to us, we're not going to grant it, because that meant they would have to keep the interim injunction in place. They didn't want to. There's too much pressure. Next week is the state opening of Parliament. They've been trying to get these boxes for the last 2 years. They can't bear it. It's the Jubilee year, can you imagine? And the government at the moment is not making headway in anything in this country. It's being embarrassed all the time. So I think it was just like, well, I think for the sake of pride, they had to tick the box. So basically the judge said, we're not saying you can't appeal, but I'm not going to accept your appeal today. I want you to go to the Court of Appeal. So now there's a gap. In that gap, I'm not covered with the injunction. So therefore, the injunction was lifted yesterday, and straight after the court hearing, it was basically at any moment the council could move in and the police and enforce this new law that you can't have structures and you can't have tents. My main message to the media yesterday was, it's not actually about structures or tents. When I came here in 2006 to stay, we didn't have tents. You know, we had boards to display what was being said, but we didn't come here, and I've never envisaged to ever even live in a tent here. But obviously, as things changed, we got tents. So losing the plinth, if you like, and the tent is not the end of the world, because obviously this new law says you can carry on demonstrating through 24 hours or indefinitely. The law says we're not stopping you. We don't have a problem with it. You don't even have to ask for permission now. Just carry on. But what they do say is that if at some point in time you need to lie down and sleep and cover yourself up, then that's the offence. So now what I'm saying in court is that can't be offence if you're legitimately protesting peacefully. You know, this is the House of Parliament. This is the government in our country. This is Parliament Square. It's historically a right to protest. And it's known throughout the world. We declare to the world that we are a democracy, and we're proud of it. And as you know, we've been exporting it all over the world. So, therefore, in this mother country of Parliament, if you like, we should be promoting these rights. However, they're livid. They want to reclaim Parliament Square on their terms. So, up until this point, we've had Parliament Square has been in our possession on our terms, and they've not been able to do anything about it. Last year, President Obama came and visited. He went into Parliament, and then as he drove out there, we had protesters, one of them was myself, on the two-piece plinths, dressed in Guantanamo orange with black hoods, and we were up on the top of the top of the plinths, highly visual, as you can imagine. President Obama came out, and I saw him. He was like aghast. He was face to face with his nightmare, if you like. You don't need to shout, you don't need to scream. Just that visual, there's the message. He knows that we know, and we know that he knows. And that is so powerful. Now, that's because it was under our terms. Now, what we're frightened of here at Parliament Square is creeping legislation. So it's now on their terms. Don't fall asleep. They'll take your sleeping bag, and they'll take any plastic covering that you have, any sort of shelter that you make. So last night I challenged the law. I got it directly into a sleeping bag, because the thing is, the crux of the law is the sleeping bag. So let's have that argument. So I lay down, got into a sleeping bag, covered myself up with the plastic. 3 o'clock in the morning, it was very cold, so what heat I do have is encapsulated in my sleeping bag. The police woke me up and said, you know, to vacate the sleeping bag, and they would take it. And I wasn't keen, so they gave me 20 minutes, and then basically they're going to summons me to court, presumably, but they're going to write to my solicitor, because they can't write to Parliament Square. So now, tonight, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, because in the court, the judge said, we're not saying that she can't demonstrate. It's not been said in the court that they haven't said anything detrimental to the protest that I've been carrying out at Parliament Square. So in other words, there is no harm other than maybe the message that we give out, which is against war. It's to bring our troops home, and basically a main worry too is on the horizon, are we going to go to war with Iran? And this time, you know, we've got to plan ahead, and we've got to say no, under no circumstances will we accept that. So that's why I'm here, and tonight I'm going to challenge it again. If a war comes up the people do not agree with, we don't support, and none of us are going to benefit because we don't, and we're going to send our young people to their deaths or possible injury on something that we can't necessarily justify, and we don't believe in it, then let's empower ourselves to say, we can't stop you, but we're not going to be a part of it. So that's very, very powerful. Empower yourself to say no, and peacefully just shut down, go on strike for peace. Peacefully. You're not harming anybody, you're not doing anything wrong, but on those 3 days initially, do nothing, buy nothing. Nothing in the system, no shopping, no work. All emergency services carry on with our blessing. The police, the ambulance, the fire brigade, hospitals stay open, of course. You know, all the responsible things that have to be done will carry on. But a lot of us are sort of, we're in the middle. Our lives, if you like, we've got a job, most of us don't enjoy our jobs anymore. There's hardly any trades, we don't make anything. It's based on slavery in the third world. So, and we're facilitating that in this country. We administer it, and also we allow it to happen. We sell things to people and policies that don't mean anything, and somebody is getting very, very, very rich. We're getting poorer, you know, we've got austerity cuts in this country severely, and all across Europe and the United States. People in, I think, Los Angeles, there's people living in tents. My daughter saw a documentary one night, and she said, "Oh, Mum, you don't want to see it, it was terrible. It's in America," and it was a girl living in a tent, but she had a baby in a tent in USA. I was shocked. I thought, that can't happen, but it was in the documentary. So this is the price that we're paying, the civilians of these countries that are backing these illegal wars of aggression, and our governments are not listening to the people. And that's the disturbing thing about it. We've got so much media today. You know, we've got internet, we've got all the communication that's available, the Twitter, the iPods. But what communication is really going out there for the common good, if you like? So we're trying to get messages to our government to listen to the people. Listen to the message. Why are people out there protesting? You need to go and find out. And sadly, a lot of the parliamentarians don't come across the road and speak to us. And that's a real shame, because we're here. Anyway, tonight I shall now challenge the law again, and I'll keep doing it. What I'll do is, I'm here as I was before, but I don't have any equipment now, but I'll carry on because the court said it is feasible, so I shall. But there's one thing that I do need. If I get tired, I will need to lie down, I will need to sleep, and then I'll put the ball in their court and see what they do. And I'll keep doing that, because by the time the trial comes, normally it will be in the courts. It's a lot of the judges surmise, and they'll talk about, well, if a protester were to do this, bearing in mind this is a brand new law, so this is the test case, they might then say, well, we envisage that this would happen or that would happen. Well, I'll be going to court with, actually, this is what does happen, because it has happened, and it's happened to me, so these are the facts. And, you know, can you carry on an ongoing protest like this? Because what will happen is, tonight they could come and take the sleeping bag again. We took it at 3 o'clock in the morning, it was freezing cold, so I ended up with sleeping in bin bags, if you like, and it was cold, and I got up at 6 o'clock, and I went and had a hot drink. The point is, I wouldn't be able to do that indefinitely every night. I've got a summons presumably on the way, but we'll see what happens tonight, and then we'll see what happens the following night, until we get to a point where, what are they going to do? And if they want to arrest me, that's okay, because I am peaceful and I'll go with them. There's no real issue. And we've just got to try it out, because these laws have to be challenged. And also, everybody needs to know where they are. So it's better to cut to the chase, cut to the core of the matter, and let's deal with it as soon as possible. And but ultimately, we need to protect the right to maintain ongoing peaceful protest at Parliament Square. One of the main worries at Parliament Square is that this new legislation in effect opens the door for creeping legislation. So they then could make conditions in the future to limit time of protest, days of protest, possibly. And that's our worry, because at the moment we can be here 24 hours a day, but if we find that sort of we have a chilling effect on protest, which I think we will have, then at some point they can then bring in new legislation to say, you know, we don't mind people being here, but not on a Wednesday during Prime Minister's question time because it's high security, not during state visits, not during, special envoys or presidents of the United States of America visiting because of security. These are very serious issues because they're the very times that you would want to be here. So that's one of our big worries. We want to keep it on our terms, if you like. Back to the peace plinth, which went yesterday, so that was May the 3rd, 2012. I lost the court case temporarily. The injunction was lifted. They came down to the Parliament Square, took the tent and the box. Now, the thing about the peace plinth is I did tell the officers and the council officials that this peace plinth is going to be auctioned. It's going to a charity in Iraq, and it's going to a special place where for traumatized children. So all the money that will be raised in an auction will go to this centre. So, I mean, it's an amazing thing if we can achieve it. It's a message of hope, it's a message of goodwill that we're going to send to Iraq from just ordinary British people who want to want to make some sort of amendment, some sort of, we can't change anything now, we can't reverse time, but at least we have to have a gesture of goodwill and try to, because we need to build a future, not just for our countries, but for the whole world. We've got to move forward, and so we've got to try to make good, and it would be just a very powerful message coming from Parliament Square. So the sacrifice of the boxes go to a good cause. One of my main concerns is that, and disappointments if you like, is that when we have an emergency, so an impending genocide, which example is we had the Tamils, all this square was filled with thousands of Tamils, and they were having a genocide in 2009. We put a call out for so many campaigns to join, because it wasn't just a Tamil issue, it's an issue for all of us, just like the issues that are when we have a genocide in the Congo and what's going on in Gaza, in Palestine. When we have emergencies, all the campaign groups need to unite, join together, then we've got a chance to actually stop something and be effective. But because we're so fractionalised, we just don't have the impact. So what happens is we don't actually achieve our goal. Quite often people run to an embassy, there's hysteria, there's a lot of screaming and shouting, and eventually anger because nothing's stopping anything, and people get frustrated, and then sometimes that overspills and then people get arrested. A few years ago they had, when they went into Gaza, I think it was the second time, a lot of students here were arrested, and the judges made examples of them, so they gave some of the sentencing was like a year and a half, which is, the judge said in the cases that there was no harm. Some of them had thrown sticks and one of them had hit a wall and fallen down. But the judge says we have to make an example because we don't want this sort of behaviour escalating. So we need to all jump on the cause together. If we've got, every area has its fire engine and it looks after the local cause. But when there's a huge fire, all the engines go to that fire, then you've got a chance of putting it out. And we need to think more like that. Okay. It's Friday, it's the 4th of May, the day after the eviction, and there's the sort of the footprint, the mud there of where the tent was, and then beyond that is where the peace plinth was. And someone quite wittingly has written a kind of a little like a body almost around where the box was, as if that's the crime scene. So it's a little bit of fun there. So all our demonstration has gone, literally. And I've got basically, I had a sleeping bag last night, and I had some tarpaulin, And basically that went during the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. That was taken from me by the police, and so then I just had black bin bags. It was very, very cold. I was awake at 6 and basically went and had a hot drink, and I'm going to do the same tonight because I need to challenge this law. As soon as we do it, you know, the better for all, I think. So because we need the ability to carry on ongoing protest at Parliament Square without well, how do you do it if you can't lie down? At some point you're going to have to. We've got to be realistic about it, and that's the challenge. That's a challenge for the courts. Can you please explain to us how you think it can be possible? Question mark, give it back to them, and we'll see. But what I'll have to do is I'll have to try it out and keep doing it so that we have a documentation of it and also a record with the police. So when we go to court, it's a real-time documentation of what I've been, you know, subjected to since the demise of the protest here. You're viewing now towards the back of Parliament Square, and as you're looking to the left we have Westminster Abbey, and then straight ahead of you at the back of the square we've got the Supreme Court, which is a building at the back with the flag on, and then over to our right here we've got the Treasury. And then of course behind us we've got the Houses of Parliament, or what's commonly known as Big Ben. And this symbolises in one square the whole power collectively of this country. So we've got legislation, we've got religion, we've got the justice system, and we've got the finance. So these are all very powerful bodies in this country. And then of course we've got the square in the middle, which is Parliament Square, and basically a traditional place to protest opposite our House of Parliament. So, you know, we as an individuals, we don't necessarily have any power ourselves, but this for us is, if you like, our domain, or it should be, and that's why it's so important to us, and to be able to speak out. And really, for them, it's equally as important in a sense that we don't come here and speak out. So until recently there's never been any pedestrian crossings onto Parliament Square, so you haven't been able to cross to get into the middle without taking your life in danger. Since then, because of the pressure to get rid of these demonstrations, I think it was a few months ago, they put 2 pedestrian crossings on each corner so that people can access the square now. And they're going to use that to say that because of increased pedestrianisation of the square, that way, that's a way forward to increase the volume of people on the pavement, and therefore any demonstrations may cause an obstruction. So that's another issue, and that's a separate issue. Originally, I came to Parliament Square and I met Mr. Brian Hoare. He's the peace campaigner in this country who came to Parliament Square in 2001. But primarily on the aftermath of the first Iraq war and the devastation left behind of depleted uranium, and the horrific effects it was having with the children and stillborn children, and cancers and leukemias and horrible deformities. And this will go on for 2 point so many billion years. I mean, it's forever. So he came here to highlight that, and I met Brian here on the square in 2001, and I basically increased my support, if you like, in 2002. So after that I became committed to the campaign here, and I worked with him for many, many years. In 2003 we went to war again with Iraq. So now it was devastating because obviously the war wasn't supported by the people. People were very, very distressed, couldn't believe that this was going to happen. It was all full of the media, radio, then there was all this evidence that they had chemical weapons, weapons of mass destruction. There was all these rumours of and fear tactics, if you like, on the television, on the radio, about ricin plots and anthrax on the tube in this country. So there was a major propaganda build-up to go to war with Iraq, and following 9/11, of course, and the bombings and attack into Afghanistan. So it was a major build-up, and then the next minute we couldn't believe it, we're in war again. We've attacked Iraq. People were here were devastated. We had 2 million on a march. It didn't do anything. Hasn't stopped anything. Since then, we've been campaigning for the last 10 years plus, and we've gone into all these different wars, and nothing seems to have any effect. In 2007, I formed the Peace Strike campaign, which basically was to empower and make a movement of a grassroots movement of ordinary people, so that then we control the movement on our terms, as opposed to waiting for something to happen that is actually going to sort of be effective in stopping wars. Because all the rallies, all the marches, the conferences, discussions, books written, hasn't changed anything. So we have the voice, we scream out, we cry, but to what effect? So the idea of the Peace Strike was to form a movement. Being a person and speaking out and saying, you know, you disagree, that's inspiring, that sends messages, and you know, people need those messages to reinforce what they know is wrong. So it's very, very important, but you have to make a movement in order to make the change. So the idea of the Peace Strike was to create that movement and to guide people, if you like, to give them confidence, to show the way forward and say, look, if certain criteria happen, and we don't want a repeat of all the devastation and all the horror that we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan, then the only way that we can be effective ourselves is to call strikes ourselves, as ordinary people, you and I. Grassroots, we're not compromised, we can't afford to repeat these atrocities again. How are we going to say no and make them listen? That's the key issue. How do we do it? All these books, there's thousands of books written, they're on libraries, they're the internet. The answers are there, but in a sense, knowledge in itself is not good enough. We have to have the knowledge, we have to have passion, but we have to act on it. So if we were to go towards another war, this time with Iran, and we want to stop it, then, you know, it's not any good thinking about it, it's no good talking about it, it's no good crying about it. This time, leave all that aside, empower yourself and say, I disagree, I won't be a part of it. And that's basically the idea of the Peace Strike. And there is history of the Peace Strike, not just in this country, but there's accounts in America, and they've been powerful. And so why they're so powerful is because you're not threatening anybody, you're not doing anything wrong. That's what we've got to remember. What we're doing, we've got to have a duty to our fellow human being. That's, if we do anything in this world, we need to know and respect each other. Because without respect for each other, you know, how am I going to be looked after? Why should I be looked after? If I don't care about you as an individual, why should you care about me? We don't achieve anything. The only way we can be united is through respect, mutual kindness. That's the way forward, and it's in the common interest of all people. And we shouldn't let things get in our way, which is propaganda. You know, listen to our own thoughts, our own hearts, our own minds. If we're being steered into something that we don't think is right, chances are it probably isn't right. But you know, you've got to train yourself to listen to your own mind and your own senses. If you feel something's not right, chances are it's not right. So Gina, you wanted me to give you a little bit of history of how I got involved here at Parliament Square. I was passing by in 2001. I met Mr. Brian Hoare. In 2006, they wanted to change the law, and they made a new law called SOCPA, Serious Organised Crime and Police Act, 2005, which meant that the demonstration here, which went from corner to corner of Parliament Square, opposite the Houses of Parliament, they wanted to downsize it to 3 metres by 3 metres by 1 metre in depth. But also they put conditions on the demonstration, and one of them was, these were very severe conditions, one of them was that the demonstration could never be left unattended. Up until that point there hadn't been a problem, but now the police were saying for security there's always got to be somebody here. Now Brian was always here on his own, and sometimes he did obviously go off for a bathroom break, but now if that happened they would take it. So during that time we had emergency planning, and basically I decided the day of the court, if the judgment went against him, that I would stay here and other people to protect the rights to continue the protest without them taking the demonstration. So in 2006 I was here, the court decision went against him, and basically since that day, that was May the 8th, 2006, I left my job that day. I never returned. Initially I thought we might be here a few months, but obviously that wasn't the case, and the years have gone by. What I did was I turned, in effect, my own stand here. I thought at the time it's a protest, but in a sense I thought, well, I've left my job, so in a way it's slightly different. I had a job, I was working, and now I don't have a job. So I turned it into a strike, because in effect I went on strike against the government in order to have to be here because of the law that they made. I didn't know I'd be here for all those years. I've had great support myself from many people, and in particular I have to say my daughter, who's supported me. It's not been easy for her. She's been very stressed at times, worried, you know. We keep in contact. I see her as often as I can. But what was interesting one day, because I was lamenting, because I was feeling, you know, the sorrow of it, if you like, and I was talking to her about it, and she said, well, to be honest, Mum, she said, you know, I would have liked you to come home. And she said, but she said, I never asked you. And I said, well, why was that? And she said, because if I asked you, you would have left the campaign. She said, so therefore I didn't ask you. And I thought at the time, that is so profound, you know, because it's true. If she said, look, Mum, that's it, finish, then that's what I would have done. But because in effect she allowed me to continue, you know, that's been able for me a vindication, if you like, to carry on and to try to make good of what we're here for. So yeah, I've got a lot to thank my daughter for.